So now let me start off with a little bit of a story on this Power BI reporting. There are actually a lot of things that have changed since we learned Power BI. I mean, I learned Power BI 10 years ago, and things have changed since then. And of course, the biggest change to me as a data professional in this past few years is typically on how Power BI has ramped up their skills, their features inside since November 2025. And this is where we are having this webinar today to let everyone know, stop building Power BI report the old way. And yes, so here we go. The agenda for today would be covering these three topics: the updates on calculation engine, native visuals, as well as some practical use cases. And of course, these practical use cases, it will be in between demos. So you would see yellow background and blue background. The blue backgrounds later would be the ones that I'll be doing demo. So please bear with me while I am switching screens in this demonstration purposes later. Yeah. So let's move on first. In the prerequisites, I would appreciate that all of you here are already familiar with Power BI, at least to a certain extent, as a business analyst. And of course, with that as well, you are already using DAX in developing your reports, or at least having some familiarity with DAX and what is DAX basically, right? And the third being that you know the difference between what is implicit and explicit measures, because these new features only work with explicit measures. Now, let me divert myself a little bit and explain what is implicit versus explicit, which I will also be showing you during the demo later. So implicit is basically, when we have all these columns that have that sigma sign at the side, when we are looking into our report view in Power BI, those are basically number related. They are either numbers or integers as the data type. So what happens is, like a typical Excel pivot, what you would do normally, just drag, like for example, actuals or sales amount, you just drag it in without having any pre-calculation. And the moment you drag it into the value field or value well in that Power BI report canvas, you would notice that it automatically gives you sum, and then later you can choose to make it a max, mean, average, etc. based on whatever aggregation logic you would want to see. All right, so that is implicit. Whereas explicit is we have to go and create measures using DAX. And let's say that I want sum of total sales being an explicit measure. I would have to go and create a measure called total sales amount equals sum fact sales bracket total sales, for example, assuming that that is a column that you would want to sum that up. So that is explicit measure versus implicit measure. And you are also familiar with the basics of data modeling. You need to know a little bit about what fact and what dimensions are, because Power BI works best in a star schema. And of course, let me also explain a little bit about data modeling in case that some of you may have already forgotten what data modeling is. When we are talking about data modeling in Power BI, we have two tables primarily. One is the fact table, the other one is the dimension table. When we're talking about the fact table, it is all about numbers. So in my classes, I always would say F stands for fact, F also stands for figures. Whereas D, dimensions, are all those descriptive columns that you may have, like you have a product ID in the fact table, your figures, and then the relationship will be a one-to-many with your deemed product table. So the product dimension will hold information and descriptions like the color, the size, the SKU, variants, for example, all sorts of things like that. So dimensions start with D. You can also think of dimensions as a dictionary table, because dictionary only have one entry for every word. There is no duplicates. That is the exact same behavior that we would be expecting in dimension tables in Power BI as well, so that we can create that one-to-many relationship from the dimension table over to the fact table in order for us to do cross filter and all sorts of analysis that is required. And most importantly, you must have at least November 2025 update in your Power BI desktop. Before we jump into Power BI later, I will also share with you how would you check your version. All right. So if you can't have this version available right now, then you may want to speak to your IT team to have the most recent version installed into your PC at work. Now, let's move on to the second point on the important housekeeping notes. This webinar is a preview to showcase these new trending features used by developers today. Like what I've mentioned, I've used it since November 25, of course, and it has been quite a fun way to explore and manage my measures as compared to how it was back in the days before November 25. Okay, and with that, this webinar will not be having any materials that will be shared at the end. If you want to know more about all these things, you may contact our key account managers who have sent the EDM to all of you, or you can follow us in our social media when there are any upcoming courses available that we will be covering these new features in depth. Okay, now let's move on. The updates on calculation engine is pretty much these three things: Visual Calcs, DAX Query, and calculation groups. In visual calculations, it is a new thing. It is a DAX calculation defined and executed directly on the visual. So what this means, it will not be inside your semantic model or your data model, right? It will not be there, but this will only live inside your visual that you are having. How to do that, I will show you later as well, right? So it is definitely making it much easier to create calculations. Last time when I say previously hard to create, I believe that I have seven seniors in this chat today to validate my experience, right? That just in order for me to calculate percentage achievement in HR, perhaps you would have your attrition rate that you would need to calculate, and then versus previous year, previous quarter, and all sorts of things, just to get one measure shown in a visual for the bosses to see. I actually have to create a lot of sub calculations just in order for me to reuse those things over and over again, but it's only for one visual. Like for example, if I'm talking about sales achievement, I only have one chart that shows me that, and nothing else in my entire report will actually look into sales achievement as an example, right? Maybe the rest would be talking about deeper breakdowns, but they are not going to look into sales achievement per se anymore, because that is page one. And page two, you'll be already looking into product analysis, you'll be looking into other trends that would be more operationally decisive for you to look at, right? Because like it or not, for me, my opinion is when we are talking about achievements, unless we are in critical industries, like you need things real time as of this morning, for example, percentage achievements are basically a lagging indicator that will help us only to adjust something at most on a weekly basis for you to adjust and see how are you able to close your sales, because I don't believe that you would make any valuable decisions that would help you close bigger sales tomorrow, given that today's sales is not that great, for example, right? So these are a lot of lagging indicators that would actually take up a lot of our brain power to just code all these base layers before we can even show that final column in our visual, right? So this definitely would lead to better performances as well. And a calculation can refer to any data in the visual, including columns, measures, or other visual calculations in the visual. So then, of course, the next question is, if I want to refer to other parts, other columns, can or not? The answer is yes, you can as well, which I will be showing you later, a short demo on how are you able to show your percentage achievement in that visual. Okay. This ability removes the complexity of semantic model, like what I explained earlier, and simplifies the entire process of writing decks. Key difference of the visual calcs is, number one, they are stored on the visual, not in model. In model is basically like me telling you, you have to go into the data model view in order for you to see, oh, okay, the measures are there, right? But here, no, it is only in that visual. It lives only in that visual. Good and bad. Good thing is it doesn't clutter up your entire measures definition in your right hand side when you're doing coding. Bad thing is if you accidentally delete the visual, then I would say good luck trying to figure that out again. Okay, so be careful because it only lives in that visual. Yeah. Second point is it combines the simplicity of context and calculated column with on-demand calculation. That's why it's much faster. And compared to measures, visual calculations operate on aggregated data instead of detailed level. So this is definitely much more beneficial because they do not need to go through every single row, no iteration, because we are only talking about aggregations here. Okay. Now, blue screen, demo time. Simple visual calculation functions. So as a business analyst, you are required to create, number one, a running total of sales for each region. And you can see from the screenshot here, region is in the year 2020. You have many regions here. It's Malaysian regions. You need to create running total for each region by the number of periods that have passed. Running total is always about passing period, right? So it's in a way calculating your year to date. In you can think that it is calculating your year to date. Second requirement is to create your achievement percentage. So like you see from my second screenshot, you would see cumulative actual and you would see the achievement percentage. And the notes here, visual clouds need base measures defined in the data model. So that's where I mean that you need to have your explicit measures that is created so that it is easier for you to build on top of that. Okay, you cannot remove the building blocks after creating the visual calculations. Example in achievement percentage here. How am I getting this? Is sales actual divide by something to give me this column, right? But I cannot delete that column. So how do I solve this? How is it that it's not visible here? This is a trick that I will be showing you. Now, enough of all that talking. Let's switch over to my workbook in not Excel, in Power BI. Just give me a moment to fire that up real quick. This is demo 1. Now, here is a typical report that I have already created in my Power BI desktop. Okay, I have my sum of actuals and I have my sum of sales broken down entirely by my regions on the columns and my year and month in my rows. But now, of course, I want to create cumulative, right? And how do we do cumulative? Is as simple as this. So, of course, what I do first is by copy pasting this out. And then I'm selecting only 2 regions here for this demo purpose and a specific 1 year. So now let's start. I want to create 2 requirements. The first requirement is for me to create cumulative total. Cumulative total, how do I do that? If you are able to see me moving here, right? Okay, before that, I just remembered that I'm not supposed to jump into here. I promise you guys that we are supposed to first look into what your version is. So click on File, click on About, and mine is in January 2026. So here is where you can check where what version are you in. And then the next one that you would want to also check is on options and settings. In order for you to see the same view as I do, I will click on options. After options and settings, I'll click on options. And over here, I would have my preview features. I would have allow on object interaction. That is why you would see on the right hand side over here, you would have build and data. Otherwise, you would see build and visualization. Okay. And then the next thing, just for us to jumpstart quickly, on the other things, basically you can check on visual calculations as well. But I believe right now it is already automatically ticked for you. Last time we would have to manually tick this. All right. So with that out of the way, now let's go back to our module. Here we have our values. And in order for me to just create a calculation, visual calculation of the running total, what I would do is I'll click here, add data. And you would see on the top here, there is an add X button, which is allowing you to create. If I hover over, you would probably be seeing visual calculation. So I'm just going to click on this and you are going to see something else that appears at the bottom. All right, this one. So in order for us to do this, I am just going to do a running total equals, and the fun thing about this, it is actually a no-brainer function. It is called running sum of columns. So of course, whenever that we are seeing in DAX or Excel, whatever that is in a square bracket, it means they are optional. So in this case, I don't need to worry about axis, order by blanks and reset. I only need to choose my column. So now I have only two columns here to choose from. Why? Because on object, you are only having these two items that you can sum. And these two columns from the fact table are in a way in type, either type integer or type number, right? So you can only choose these two. So I'm going with sum of actual, and I am going to close my parentheses here and click enter. My job is done. That is as simple as that. And here you can see how Central is having its running total from January to February to March all the way down till December. Okay, now if you want to rename it, you can by clicking on here on this right hand side. I'm just going to probably call it cumulative. And that's how you already format this over here, right? And then you don't want the actuals anymore. But if I delete this, if I remove data, it is going to give me an error because there is no more base for you to build on. So let's Control Z. How do we do that? If you guys have sharp eyes, you would already notice that there is this icon that has an eye. So in my class, I always like to joke by punching the eye, and that basically means you are hiding its view. And here is where you have your cumulative total going back. This is basically only showing cumulative total. So here, of course, I can add my title to show that this is cumulative total by region. And this is running total. And now I want to create percentage of achievement. So I'm just going to quickly duplicate this and call this achievement percentage. And from here, right now, you can see on the right hand side, again, I only have sum of actuals and I need to get my target. So I will need to find my target, sales target, drop it in here, right? So I would see my sum of actuals and sales target. So what I need to do right now is getting my achievement percentage, which is actually just A divided by B. You can use A stroke B like how we do in Excel, but since DAX has this function called divide, we would use that. Why? Because if we have anything that is divided by 0 using divide function will give you 0. So in a way, it's a sugar syntax where it is like if error that is already packed inside this function, so you don't have to wrap if error with a divide by b anymore. You can just use divide function. It doesn't appear in Excel yet. This function is not Excel. This function is only having we only have this function in DAX. Okay, so how do I do this? Now again, coming back here, right? I am going to add data, click this FX button, new visual calculation, and I am having this again. So I'm going to put in achievement percentage equals divide, like I mentioned, the numerator. The numerator would be a sum of actuals, right? Sum of actuals. Let's see if we can do that. And denominator is target. And alternate result, we don't need to. And let's press enter. We can. Okay. So here we are able to see the achievements in percentages. And of course, I would want to format this into percentage. How would I do that is I will have to click on this. And let me see if I can format it over here. Doesn't seem to give me that feature. Okay, let's move on first. Because the most important thing is to show you that you actually need these two right now. Sorry, this one, you need actuals divide by target to give you achievement. So like I said, if you delete either of this, it will give you an error. So in order for us to avoid that error, we would just need to close that eye. How do I do that? Is by clicking on this button here. When I see it, now you see me, sales of target. And then if I hide it, now you don't see me. Here I can quickly just call it actuals and achievement percentage. And yeah, it's done. It is that easy, guys. With this, it only lives in this visual. Okay, so now you have your achievement percentages here as well. Now that is done. Let me check my chat here if there's any questions. Okay, still no questions. Good. I am going to stop share my screen and going forward to my DAX query. Okay, that is the second part of this webinar. DAX query and slideshow mode. After us knowing about visual calcs, that's the easiest and the most fun part, to be honest, because DAX query gets a little bit more technical. And of course, if you guys are coming from the old days like me, right, it would be like last time we have to use this thing called tabular editor, and we have to use this thing called DAX Studio. But right now, Microsoft has already combined Tabular Editor and DAX Studio inside inside Power BI, sorry. Yeah. And of course, it's not a full feature of Tabular Editor. Like you don't expect features of Tabular Editor 3 that we have to pay to be free in Power BI. That's not, I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon. DAX Studio, I would actually still prefer to use DAX Studio for really complicated debugging. All right, but I mean, this feature is available. They are like SQL queries, right? If you are familiar with how SQL works, whatever flavors that you guys would have, like be it Mongo, sorry, not Mongo, Mongo is not, be it Postgres, be it Google BigQuery, or or MariaDB, etc. Similar things, right? T-SQL also. It is like them. These queries are basically you prompt, or not really prompting, you are just putting in your query, writing your query in that structured format, and then it will show you the data that you already have. DAX queries do not create items in model or visuals in the report. But I will share with you later what that is. In the start, it says that you can ask DAX query scope measures to the measure using code lens, update model actions, or the update model with change button. I'm not going to talk about code lens, but I will talk about update model later. Okay, so DAX query typically have two parts. The first part is evaluate. If you're familiar with SQL, evaluate is like your select statement. Define statement is more like your set function in SQL, right? It is optional. It is allowing you to define your DAX formula pretty much like a measure to be used only inside your query. If you want to write and test out a query, index query, you would need to use the define statement. But I will not be covering define. I'll be only covering evaluate. Define, I'm basically just gonna show you how to do a bulk commit later. What is bulk commit? Stay tuned. Okay, DAX query anatomy. This is, I understand this is a bit too small, but I will show you in my Power BI app later. There are a lot of things here which is pretty nicely summarized by Microsoft Learn already. So I'm just going to go with the flow where you would be expecting to see, let me just get my laser pointer out. Here would be your ribbon as how every Microsoft products would have. And then this is the entire body of your DAX query view, right? You can view this and you can edit this. This would be the result grid. If you're familiar with this already, it's pretty much like our visual calculations, right? And then you have your data panel to see what models, what is the column names that you would need to drag and drop. Sometimes it's much easier that way. Like for me, I prefer to write complex measures when I have my, when I am in my model view, okay? And these are quick queries that you can randomly select and pick and play whatever that you want, okay? And let's move on to the second demo. The second demo is committing bulk DAX codes using DAX queries. Now, this visual, I will be doing my demo here, but of course, we are going to be covering much more in-depth in GRC 105, which is Advanced Dashboarding Techniques in Power BI. It is a 2-day course, which we will cover this and SVG as well, which I will show you later to this day. As a BA, you are required to create 10 predefined measures in the model and create IBCS compliant visual of revenue trend of the current year. IBCS stands for International Business Communication Standards, where you would see black as actual, gray as previous year, white with black border as forecast, and you only have two colors that is non-grayscale, which is red and green. Let's go on to the next one. These are the 10 measures that you would need to create. Okay, you need to create your delta PY, your max value, total target, FC, which is forecast, AC, actual, PY, previous year, your red max, green max, delta color, delta PY percentage. Last time when SVG was out, but DAX query was not out yet, I have to spend a long time figuring out what am I supposed to create first. What is the flow that I need to do first? You know, otherwise, if I am creating delta PY, but delta PY percentage, but I do not have my PY yet or my delta PY yet, I can't, because all of these things are pretty much like a DAX patterns, right? These DAX patterns, typically, whatever models that you're using, you pretty much would need these anyway. So the only thing that changes is the column name because your model is different from mine. So, and it's very difficult for you to figure out what needs to come first, right? So that is the challenge that I have when I am building measures in the past, okay? Now, I will then now switch on to my second demo. Let me quickly whip that up. Okay, so here, now what we have, this one. Okay, so in here right now, this is of course credits to Power BI Park in YouTube. If you're interested to see how this is done slowly, you can watch his channel. He's a very informative guy. All right, and this is basically a warm-up in my GRC 105. I rate this complexity 3 out of 5, not that difficult. Okay, load data into Power BI desktop. Duh, we are already done with that. And then the second one in my class, I would normally say, okay, you open up this DAX query view, and then after you take this notebook, open this, copy and paste it in, and your job is done. right? So what do I mean by that? How to do this? Let me just create a new page first, and I'm just going to copy this note over so that we all can follow this through. Okay. Now, load data into Power BI desktop. Let me just quickly go into my model view to explain to you what it is. It is a very, very simple. Unfortunately, there is no finance people here, but let's pretty much say that, okay, this is your fact sales target, for example, and this is your target fact. In order for me to create a target versus actual, actually, I need to have two facts. Why do I need that? I will be explaining more in my GRC 101. Okay. And my DIM COA and DIM date. COA in accounting term is called chart of accounts. Typically, it only shows you boring things like your accounting code, your account name, your type, is it revenue, cost of goods sold, etc. And I'm putting a sort ID here. Otherwise, everything will be jumbled up and it is no longer a P&L that we would be familiar with. Yeah. So now, after we are done with that, now I would need to obviously, let me see what I can do to delete all these existing measures. Okay, maybe I don't need to. I will just copy paste and rename them. Now I am copy pasting it from a code, right? And I will just tell you where to paste it. Before that, a quick recap. This is your report view, the one that you are painting with your canvas, in your canvas. This is the table view for you to inspect your data. This is the model view for you to see your relationships that is created in these tables. This is the DAX query view, right? Now I have all of these already predefined. If I don't want any of this, I can basically just delete this. Let me just actually do it right now. I'm just going to delete this, run. It's not going to have anything. All right, that's fine. And I'm just going to copy this over, right? And what I'm going to do now, because these measures are already created, right? So I cannot rename that measure. I want to show you how do we update measures in bulk. And when I say in bulk, is basically I can throw in at whatever orders and it will not break. That's the fun part of it because everything goes in together. It's not going in a linear time zone. Okay, so I'm just gonna create a field, a prefix here, to delta py, to max value, to total target, so that I do not get myself confused. And also you guys will know that these are basically the ones that we are creating in this demo. Yeah. The two here has no meaning, by the way. It's just for me to guide you all that we are creating this together. Just give me a moment to just select all of this and put two. You can imagine this is what we do when we are doing a bulk code. All right, now let me just enlarge my screen again so you all can see. Here I am using define. Earlier on I said it's rare, but considering now that I'm going to be demonstrating to you how to do a bulk code commit, you have to use define. And after you use define, when you press run, it gives you nothing because run is basically like you running a terminal. It will not impact anything. It will not update anything. Okay. Now, how do I want to make use of it and update this directly into my model, right? If you would have guessed it already, it is by pressing this button, update model with changes. But I do not want to update yet because I want to show you over here, you do not see anything with tool, right? If I press tool here, nothing appears. Means these measures are not yet committed into the model. All right. Early on, visual calculations do not touch the model, but this one, DEX query, update your codes in bulk will be persistent into your model. So what I'm going to do is click on update model with changes. Are you sure? You cannot control Z. I am sure. I'm going to click my update model. And then now when I press tool, I would be able to see all of this already. These are literally like what you see me talk and it's done within like 2 clicks, 1 click to update, 1 click to confirm, and it's all already updated. It would make your life much easier. So now let's move on to this one. After we are done with this, we have to add AC, PY, and FC into the y-axis. So now we have to understand what chart are we talking about. This one is actually a clustered column chart. So that's what we are going to replicate. Here I am going over to clustered column chart, make it a little bit bigger so it's nicer for everyone to see. And as the guide says, add AC, PY, FC into the y-axis. So I am going to put in 2 AC because this is the new one that I created in this demo session live. And then I am going to have 2 PY. I'm going to add this as well. I know it's going to be ugly, but let's just do according to the flow first. And 2 FC. Okay, now that this is done. Number 4 is to add year and month name into the x-axis. Okay, into the x-axis, I will put in my year and my month. Okay, you may ignore using calendar auto because in this demo, I am not teaching how are we doing dimension tables using using DAX table, right? And now filters not on slices on this page. Okay, filters is not slices. Slicer will be here. Let me find that. Where did it go? They have changed place here. This one. That is filter. That is slicer. Sorry, filter is here. So what we're gonna do is go in here. I am gonna filter on this page. And I am going to select my year equals 2025. So I'm dropping it here, change my filter type to basic and select 2025. Sorry. And my type is revenue. That is why I have negative because P&L expenses are in negative, right? So I'm going to delete this and I am going to choose my type in dim COA, drop it here, and I am only selecting revenue. So now we are having everything moving upwards, no more expenses items being shown. Of course, this is very ugly, guys. So what we're going to do first is to set AC to black, PY to white, 30% dark, FC to white with black borders. How do we do that? And what I normally like to tell people with the new feature that we are updating by allowing on-object interaction, and by the way, if you do that already, you need to close and reopen to allow the changes to persist and basically saved automatically until your PC needs to be reformatted, right? So it's going to be persistent until that time. So what I like to tell people is we are able to see this cute thing that is like a brush. And I always like to say this is like our makeup box, right? Because brush is like, you know, females normally would have those blushes and all sorts of stuff that is in their vanity box, right? So I'm going to pull out, I always say this, I'm going to pull out from the makeup box. And these are all the things that is required for me to do my makeup on this visual. It's not in build because build is you building, doing cosmetic surgery in Korea. It's not in data because data is basically you doing your x-ray. We don't need that. This is a presentation layer. So now I am going over to my columns instead of my series all. I am choosing my AC. What does it say? AC is black. So with AC, my color is going to be black. And then my PY is white, 30% dark. Let's see anything actually. Yeah, this one. And then FC will be white. Your forecast will be white. And of course, you're going to not see anything, right? So in order for us to fix this problem, what we need to do is simply turn on your border and make sure that your border is black or grayish. And yeah, that's basically what step 1 of configuration is. Now, we need to toggle the series to all again, right? The series was, we chose AC, PY, and FC. So now we have to go back to all, and we are going to do something like what we did in Excel. If you are familiar with this, I'll always love to play with series overlap. Yeah, so that's what we're going to do. We are going to go back here right? Select all, and then I would have to give me a moment to go down. Yeah, layout. In this layout, I have my space between category, space between series. The requirement says 30% for both. And then we are enabling overlap and flip overlap. I will show you what that means later, one at a time. Space overlap, space between categories is 30%. So you can see now earlier on as 20, but then I'm putting it to 30%. You can see it is getting smaller, right? Because the categories are on the months. So I'm making the distance between months a little wider. Space between series, this is your overlap. I am putting 30 and you can see that it is still not overlapping. So that is why we have to enable this overlap. Now, do you see that it is already overlapped? But of course, we do not want the PY to show up front and then after the FC to show up front, because what's important in this kind of trend is to show what happens in the current year. So it is AC that needs to be shown. In order for us to do that, I will need to flip overlap. So the moment I flip overlap, you can observe on your right left-hand side that the black and the gray will show up already like this. Okay, so now it's already starting to look nice, but it is still not IBCS compliant yet, because IBCS compliant will also be showing you the percentage up and down and all that kind of stuff like that. Okay, set the bar color. Now we are moving on to error bars. Okay, again, why do I insist on you enabling on object interaction is because if you don't, you will not be able to see error bars. So now let's click on error bars. The upper bound, we are going to choose rate max. So I'm going to click on this and find rate max. Oops. I'm going to select to rate max, and that's it. Set bar color to this color. Okay, so now I am going to choose enable. I have to enable the option first, otherwise nothing is allowing me to do anything. So I'm just going to quickly copy paste this hex code. Okay, but you can already see, right, that the bars are already showing up. So now let me go back to my bar, and in here, my bar color, I am going to go for more colors and paste my hex code in, press enter, and then my width will be 10px. Now I can see it wider. My border color is going to be 0. Border color, I can leave it blank, but it's going to be 0 size. So you can see this already. Okay. And then we are also going to go back here and enable the same thing for PY. PY, we need to go for green max, and this is the green hex code. There is a reason for this. I will explain to you later. Now I am going to 2PY, right, in error bars. And in here, 2PY, let me find it. Okay, I accidentally disabled it. Okay, let me find it again in the options, enabled it. My upper bound will be green max now. Green max, I will select 2 green max. Okay, and my bar color, go on more color options. I'll select this green. And then after that, the width is also 10px with border size 0. And you can already see it forming here. Okay. So why is this hex codes used? Because if you are in my 105, I will explain to you 8 types of color blindness. And this green and red hex code is the safest for all types of color blindness, because you still can see 2 tones, regardless if it is red or black, red or green, or blue, or yellow, right? Now that is done. Let me just check if there is any questions coming in. Still no questions. Okay, good. Okay, so I've already showed you how we can commit the whole thing in bulk. Now we are going to something a little bit more interesting and challenging at the same time, calculation groups. Okay, if you are already very familiar with this, that's great. Let me find my share button here. Okay. Calculation groups are significantly able to reduce the time of your redundant measures that you have created by allowing you to define your DAX formulas as calculation items. What do I mean by this? Remember, we always would have things like, especially sales metrics, yeah? PY, YOY, QTD, QOQ, MOM, etc. You guys get where I'm coming from, yeah? And it is going to be quite heavy for you to write one by one, especially when you have so many other metrics. Goodness gracious, you would have to figure out and replicate that. Imagine you have got 5 measures and you have got 5 metrics that you need to do. That is basically 25 times that you have to copy, paste, and redo. Right? But with calculations group, you don't need to do that anymore. It can be found in your model view. Okay. Now, demo 3, calculation group. These are the list of explicit measures that are already created in the model. You have total sales, product cost, order quantity, freight, and total tax. Apply time series analysis for the above measures using calculation group. In this case, I am only choosing current MOM percentage, QTD, YTD, and YOY percentage, right? Then that is the requirement. I would need to turn on my calculation groups now and move on a little bit faster. Okay, nice. Now let me share my screen on the other side. All right. So with this calculation group, how do we have this, right? I think the first thing I would need to do is to remove the existing calculation group so that we all can start from scratch and understand how this demo is done. Okay, let's just assume there's no calculation group right now. It is broken, whatever. Okay, this is total freight, or you can put in your total sales as well. I'll explain more later. So here is the measure that you have already created, sum of total freight. That's all. And your rows will be your year and your month, and that's all. So in order for us to create your calculation group, you would need to go into your model view first, this one. Okay, you will need to go into your model view first. I'll click on the model view, and here you can find calculation group. By clicking on this, you are going to see calculation items. And in this calculation item now, it is going to be empty, of course. So what we're going to do is to create a new calculation item. So I'm going to select this one. Right now, it's calculation item is equals to selected measure. And what I will do is, let me just quickly go and find the requirement. It is current. So I need to find and get the current, right? The current is basically selected measure. What do I mean by that? It is the measure that is used in this visual that is selected. Yeah. So that means later in the visual field, when you drop in total sales, it will show you total sales. If you drop in product cost, it will show you product cost. Selected measure. That is why I say that you have to predefine these explicit measures earlier, right? So now I'm going to put in my current. Done. My calculation item 2, I am going with my month on month percentage, MOM percentage. So the function will be divide what? Maybe I do not want to do this. It's a bit too complicated. I'm just going to declare variable first. Okay, I'm declaring variable of current equals selected measure. And I'm going to create another variable called pref-month, prem equals calculate. I need to transition my context, which is going to be my current variable, and the filter will be same parallel period. Do I have previous month? I think I do. Yeah, we have previous month. Dates would be dim dates. Sorry, let me just enlarge the screen again. Yeah, dim date dates, close my parentheses. So I now have my current and my previous month. Now I'm going to create another variable called delta equals what? The delta that I want is going to be prem minus cur. Okay. No wonder I forgot another parenthesis here. So it's going to be, sorry, not prem minus cur. It is cur minus prem. Yeah. So that is the difference of this month versus previous month. And now again, I am declaring var result. What do I want? I want to divide my delta with my previous month. Close my parenthesis, return my result, press OK. And now I would have my MOM over here. Let us see if I have this. How do I do that? It's by going to column. You will now see the calculation group. I just want to test whether these two measures are working as expected or not. So I'm just going to drop it in, and I am seeing this current, which is properly formatted. But MOM percentage is not. It is showing me 0 ringgit. I do not want that. I want it to be in percentage. Now, how do I do that? Again, going back into the model view, here in formatting, you need to enable dynamic format string. When I enable this, you would see on this part, you either have format or item. If I am going to item, that is my calculation. If I click on format, it would be the formatting string. Now, I need to put them in double quotes, which is going to be 0%. I do not want any decimal places. I will click commit. Let's see if it works, because it did not work for some time. Now it did. Okay. This is MOM percentage. So let me just try to break it down. There is probably a problem here. I will need to check later. Let's just move on first, right? These two are created already. Let's see what else do I need. QTD. Okay, now right click, new calculation items. Here, I will put in QTD equals QTD, dates QTD, okay, of the calculation group that I will need. So I will need to first have my calculate, and then I will need to transition it to follow the quarter, right? So here is where, again, I'm going to use my selected measure, selected measure, yeah, here, yeah. And then what is the context transition that I want? I want your dates QTD, dim date, it has to be a column, and that's it. I will click commit. I'm committed, right? QTD, let's check this. I already have my QTD over here. Okay. Now, going back to my model view, I would also need to have my year to date. So I'm just going to be very lazy, copy this, right click, new calculation item, paste this and call this YTD. Instead of dates QTD, it will be dates YTD. Okay. And then I'm going to commit this, and I am going to have my year to date. Okay. Then the next thing that we have to do is my year on year. So let us go and create a new calculation item here, year on year. And I'm going to be lazy again by copy pasting this. Let me see actually what's wrong with this and why is it not working. It should work though. Let me try to debug here. If I press on delta, what do I get? No, I'm not getting anything. That is weird. Sometimes this really does happen. Okay. Let me just, if this doesn't work, then I'm just going back to the original that I have created. So I'm just going to copy this and put this into my YOY calculation item. Let me click on this calculation item. I am going to paste this in. Instead of MOM, I'm going to change YOY. Instead of pre-M, I'm going to say pre-Y, previous year, and previous year, and return the result. Instead of previous month, I am going to say same period last year. Okay, so that is the context transition in time series analysis. So now I'm going to click commit, and my YOY percentage is still showing 0. I think I know why, because there is no data before 2019. Let me just select another year. Let's see if I have. No, that's weird. Okay, let's see if this works. If I drop this and put this as total sales, it worked yesterday, so it should work. That is very weird. Okay, let me zoom out and see if anyone is interacting with me yet. No. Okay. So let me just quickly check where is my functions that I created. I saved it here already. Actually, my functions are no different. Let me just explain to you what I mean. Let's see if this will be, should work. MOM percentage. Let me just enlarge the screen again. It is the exact same thing, just it is different. Okay. Maybe let me just check back. Okay. I understand where the error comes from right now. I am using, okay, this is a humiliatingly beginner's mistake. I should not be using a variable inside calculate because it's going to be static. The moment that it is static, there is basically a minus a equals 0. Yeah. If you don't understand what I mean, you are more than welcome to join our 102, which is conquering DAX. Okay, so in this, whenever that I'm creating variables, I am not supposed to wrap another variable. In this case, would be my current, right? I am not supposed to be putting it inside here in my calculate function because there will not be any context transition. That is why it was returning 0. Okay, so now let me change this. I already know what's the problem. I'm just going to put in here selected measure, and I'm going to press commit. And then I am going to go on to my YOY again by putting in here selected measure and press OK. And I would be able to see my percentages. There you go. Now, of course, when you see YOY, it is still not in percentage. That's because I haven't done any formatting yet. How do I do formatting? Is again, go back to my model view. I will click on YOY, allow dynamic format string. And in here, it has to be inside DAX because you can't do anything here. You have to click on this and then they will still throw you into this formula bar. I am putting in 0%. Click OK. And go back here, it is now formatted nicely. Now, of course, with this, it is a little bit confusing, right? And you want the order to be probably after MOM, it would be QTY, QTD, and then YTD followed by YOY percentage. So how do we rearrange them is by clicking on model view again. So I guess by now you would have already understood anything to do with calculation group, go to model view. Yeah. It is as simple as you clicking here. You have to click on the calculation items with this the whole bin. Yeah? You have to click on this, not these individual ones. You have to click on this, and then you would see this saying calculation item order. I can just drag this, push it up, and then go back to my visual, and I have it nicely sorted. Okay, that is about calculation groups. Updates on native visual, new cut visual replacing the old one, and image visual with SVG support. Like I mentioned, SVG stands for Scalable Vector Graphic. Okay. Now, in this demo, we are transforming boring visuals by adding icons with the new cut visual. This one will be our first reports assignment in our GRC 101. Okay. So if you have already attended 101, you would be familiar with this. The only difference is the old card visual is already deprecated. So if you have joined our class before November 25, you would probably not be able to have that kind of visual anymore. So now with this new card, good thing is a lot of people tend to ask me, Alex, can I have my title on the top? I always get this request when I teach 101, and I used to say, no, we can't do that. But right now, that old card is no more, so it is by default on the top. your titles will be on the top. Yeah. But what I want to add to this is to show you how to add visuals into these respective values, so it looks much more interesting and much more meaningful apart from just boring numbers, right? So how do we do that? Is again, I would have to stop share and go back to my demo. This would be demo for new cut visual icons. For those of you who have already attended our 101, you will be very familiar with this chart, with this report page. Yeah, we talked about how to create shadows, how to make things look better, etc. And then now with icon, I want to see all these new items here, right? Because without icon, this is what we normally have. With icon is what I am going to share with you now. So how to do that? I'm basically just copy pasting it here to make it bigger for everyone to see. Okay. What I'm doing here is basically copy the new card visual to a new page, optional to avoid visual constraint. I am that bad. I don't like to have too many clutters. Okay. And stretch the card longer. Image may be too big by default. It doesn't matter. And then import visual and check ratio. To me, in this example, in this report, 20% is perfect. It may be different for you. Okay, how do I import this visual? Since we have a bit more time, let me explain to you. You can actually go to flaticon.com. Let me just get that ready first. Flaticon, and then I am going to share my entire screen so you guys don't get confused seeing things flickering around so much. Okay, let's see if you can see. Oops, not this one. I would have to share my entire screen instead. Yeah. Okay. Now with this, I'm putting it at the side and then putting this on the right hand side. I'm having 37 inches monitor, so that's why it's a bit wider here. Yeah. So flaticon.com, you can basically put in whatever that you want. It is not trademarked, but what they normally say, let's say if I want to put a cute icon called fire, right? Let's see, what do I have? I have these icons, right? And I am going to download this. It's not going to disallow me if I want SVGs. Again, you already know what SVGs are. You have to pay. But yeah, you can go with PNG most of the time anyway. You can do free download, but you must attribute the author. So it's more like your ethics, right? You have to do this first. But of course, before this demo, I have already done this. And let me just show you my icons. It is very difficult to see because my background is black. You have got this: freight, order quantity, product cost, revenue, and taxes. Okay, you will be getting this in my 101 course. So you have to download it first into your desktop, and then moving on here, now I can make this big, right? Import the visual, check the ratio. So I'm going to click on this, pull out my makeup box, and then after that, let's see where my visuals are. It would be in image, and then it would be in cards. Instead of all, I want to choose one by one. You are already familiar with this because we just covered this 10 minutes ago. So I'm going to go with sales amount. Image, I am going to turn that on. Let me make it big. And then here, upload image, browse. I have to go and browse for my icons. That is sales amount. So this is revenue. Double click on it. It is very big and very ugly. So that is why we need to fit this. Just give me a moment. Where is that? Fit, stretch, fill, center. It should be the center. Stretch the card longer, import visual. Let me see where my image height. Yeah, image height, instead of auto, I'm putting it at 20%. It's very small now. That's weird. Let me just put 100 first. For now, let me make it a little smaller so I can see the whole screen. And I am moving on to my total product cost. Again, I'm turning on my image. upload image, and then browse. This would be product cost. I am choosing my product cost here. It's going to be like this. And then moving on to my text amount, image turn on, browse taxes, click on it. And then after that, I have my order quantity, turn on image, browse for my order quantity. And then I will have my freight, turn that on, browse for my freight. Done. Now, the funny thing is I am not able to see where the directions are. I used to be able to see, let me see, maybe it is this one. Is it? No, not this. Multi-cut layout arrangement, horizontal, cell, table. No, that is very weird. It used to be here. Okay. I will move on first to finish off the module, and let's figure this out later together. Yeah. There could possibly be some changes that I was not aware of, very strangely. Okay, so basically that is how you add an image into this visual. And then after that, we are done with this. There is actually this visual placement. So now I'm a bit stubborn now. Let me click and find if there is this word called placement. Properties, data format. Seriously, if any OGs can help me out, I would greatly appreciate it. There is indeed one thing called visual placement, if I recall. Unless there is a bug that happened in January 26, I am not aware. Reference labels, I still don't see it. Where is my placement? Heading, no, not heading. Borders also no, divider, no, background, no, none of this apply. Call out, no, not call out. Call out does not apply. Yeah, that is very strange. Something has changed and it is not here anymore. If I recall, there is a visual placement. So now let's move on first to our final module, right? I'm sorry, I'm not able to find that visual placement and share it with you guys because it apparently seems to be a little buggy and we do not have the time to check and debug it live. Okay, so let's move on to the final one. The final one is this. This is what I mean by SVG. Okay, so this is covered in my GRC 105. And this is basically transforming meaningless gauges into meaningful spark lines. Okay, because gauges are basically one of the big no-nos in reporting. Actually, yeah. So what I'm doing here is changing that using the same new card visual. I hope it doesn't disappoint us. To put in my spark line. Okay, this spark line, of course, I did not write this from scratch. This spark line is basically something that you can search online. Just type in Carrie Kolosko, this name here, and you would see a lot of SVG templates that she has already wonderfully created and so graciously shared with everyone for free on her blog. So if you're interested, you can go and visit her blog here. So what I'm going to do here, is moving on to our demo number 5, which is our last demo of the day. Here, demo number 5. Now, how do I get this SVG trend line? Okay, so let's inspect the element first. You have your sales amount. Your sales amount is a very typical DAX measure of sum X. I don't need to explain this. But how do you get these lines? All right. So the lines, I actually have them already copy pasted here. The reason why is because I did nothing different except for changing the columns and the measure references. So let me just go over to Carry Colosco and show you what else is there. Carry Colosco SVG templates. Here you have a lot of things, guys. All of these are SVGs and they are really, really, really cool. But I don't have time to explore all of them. Yeah. So you can pretty much select one and on anything. So like mine, I selected on this one. Yeah, I selected gradient. And here is basically the measure. All you need to do is just copy this and change your form, change your what do you call it? The measure references. Like instead of financials date, mine is deemed date. So I'm just gonna do that, and that's how I arrived into this one. Really no brainer, just copy paste. Okay, do the same for sales amount as well. Yeah, and then what did I do different here is go on to my format. In my image, let me see. I hope this will not give me a surprise. Yeah, okay. You have to go into your image, right? Like what we did just now. Sales amount, instead of if you don't have image, then it's basically becoming boring. Okay? And then I am going to turn on that image. Oops, where did it go? Where did it go? Okay, turn that on again. I am going to remove this first. Let's just imagine that this is the first time we're doing this, yeah? So it's going to be blank. And because it is an SVG, so let's just take a look at sales amounts SVG code again, right? By clicking on this. Oops, it's not showing up yet. No, is it showing up? Now, here, this is eventually a URL. When it is a URL, all you need to do is in image, instead of upload image like what we did earlier, we are going to enter URL, but we are not going to hard code them because it is supposed to be dynamic. In order for it to be dynamic, I will have to then select conditional formatting. And then I am choosing the field value. What is the field value that I want? It's going to be sales amount. So it's opaque area spotlight sales amount. That is the name that I have created here. I will click on OK and it's done. It is as simple as that. It is, let me recap, yeah. It is as simple as you copy pasting from anything that you want from Carrie's blog here. There's a lot of choices here for SVG templates. You can play along with it. And then after that, fix your measures, just throw it in here and then edit your measures and then it's done. It is just that simple. And you can already impress people with this. Now, since we have a bit more time, let me also show you this. How do I get this green accent? It is it still exists in the previous one if you are not familiar with it. How do you get there is by finding accent here. Okay. If you do not know the name of this, so okay, one thing about me putting in my prompt here is because I am lazy. But if you are not familiar with what are these items and elements are in this makeup box, go out, hide everything. This is how I normally like to do when I'm exploring things. Yeah, I'll open every single one of it and toggle whatever that I want so that I can remember what those are for. So that one is in cards. I am opening cards and then I am going to allow my accent bar. If I disallow my accent bar, you will see that it's gone. And then here I am allowing it to turn on. color, transparency, width. I can adjust the width. I can adjust the transparency. I can also adjust the color if I want to also. Yeah. So those are the few features that is new in Power BI as at 2026. I want to recap this session by quickly going through our slides one more time, right? What we have learned this whole 2 hours is we can use simple visual calculations. And how do we do that? Is simply by clicking on that FX button when we are clicking on add data, right? In any of our field columns, value columns that we want to add our fields in. And we have to make sure that the existing building blocks cannot be deleted. How to hide them is basically by punching the fella's eye. Okay. And that is how we achieve this. Running sum, by the way, if you're interested, running sum is not a measure that you can put into your model. It is only available for your visual calculation. Okay, how do I know this? I would have to go into DAX documentation provided by Microsoft, and that's how I know. You know, sometimes they will explain to you it is allowed in an SSAS, SSIS, DAX query view, TMDL, etc. And they will have their ticks and crosses. So that is how I know that running sum is not available in the model. It is only available in your visual calculation. Next, we moved on to our second demo where we committed bulk DAX codes using DAX queries. So we just copy paste all that measures that we have, throw it in, commit by pressing update selected, update the model. Okay, so I would recommend you, if you are already very familiar with the codes that you are going, the measures that you have written, but you're not familiar on how to write DAX query, just go to ChatGPT and say, these are the list of my formula in DAX. Please help me write this in DAX query so I can commit this into my Power BI model, and they will write it nicely for you. Okay. And then calculation group. Calculation group, as a recap, it is always going to be in your model view. It can only be found in your model view as at today. Next future, I won't be sure. Yeah, but as at today, you can only access this in your model view. Click on the calculation group, and then you can toggle and play around with all sorts of things that you want. Okay, you can create all these things. And like I mentioned, let me just go back to my, oh, okay, it's not here again. Let me just reopen that because I just remembered I forgot to show you two more other cool things that you can do with calculation groups. Okay, so like I mentioned, this is only total sales, right? And you want to do two things. And maybe you want to save product cost as well. I can literally just throw in my total product cost, and I can already have all these columns readily available. Just like that. Maybe it's too much and you want to select only certain things to show because now you have so many things. And let's not forget one thing, guys. The moment you are creating your calculation group, it becomes a table. The table can be seen in the table view that you can check here. The ordinal is basically your order, yeah? So I will go here, and because I want to select what calculation group items I want to show, I just go on and enable my slicer. Sorry, not here. I need to click outside and then click on my slicer here. And then at data, I am going to go for my calculation group column. And I have this. Now watch, this is really, really cool. I can select QTD. It is showing me QTD. I can select YTD. It's showing me YTD. I am selecting both YTD and YOY. I can see both. That is how crazy, amazing Power BI has become in the past 10 years. This is, to me, the most flexibly interesting item that I can just have this slicer right at the corner here for my visual reporting. And I'm just going to show them here, like I'm just allowing my boss to click whatever that he wants to click. And I don't need to take up so much visual space anymore as compared to last time. So like I said, right, like I have so many visuals that I have created, 5 measures that I have created, and I have got 5 time series that I have to analyze. Damn, sorry for my language, I have to create 25 measures last time, but with calculation group, I can just use selected measure. Last time, before calculation group was introduced into Power BI, we have to use tabular editor. And tabular editor is a bit confusing because you might need to work and have a bit of C-sharp knowledge, sorry, not C-sharp. Yeah, C-sharp knowledge to play along with some advanced features. But right now, it has already been so simple for all of us, right? That's demo number 3. Demo number 4 is this. Unfortunately, I am not able to find out how am I supposed to do the visual placement. I think that there is a bug and I hope that they are able to resolve it so that you guys can start playing with this when you are building your next Power BI report or upgrading your upcoming Power BI reports. Yeah. So this is new card visual part 1. We are just adding pictures. Card visual part 2 is here that I am showing my sales amount trend by allowing image URL. So here is where it is showing you how are you adding in your SVG URL into your DAX measure that makes it dynamic. You can select anything and it will change accordingly. And then your visual will be nice and scalable without any ugly pixelations. All right, I am done with my sharing. I will now open my floor for question and answer. If any of you here have any questions, I will be more than happy to answer. Chen says for call out position setting, it will be undercut and then layout. Okay, thank you. Let's try that out. Close this. And I need to share my screen again. Okay, share my screen. I'm tired of switching windows. Share my screen and it would be in demo 4 new card visuals. And let's check the comment again on what Chen says. It will be cards and then layout. So how do I do this? Yeah. Okay, I have already deleted the image just now by accident. Let me just quickly do one only. Yeah. Excuse me. Sales amount, revenue. Okay. So it would be under cards and then layout. Arrangement, order. Wow, they have changed this, guys. It was not like this last month. Oh my goodness. What did you choose, Chen? I want to see what you choose. Reference label image. Okay, let's just follow yours. Reference label image callout. Okay, its arrangement is horizontal. Yeah, they really have changed this, guys. It was not like this at all. Callout size now 20%. No. I don't even know how am I supposed to change this size anymore. Why is it so complicated now? Chen, are you able to help me to see if there is changes on how are you supposed to change this pixel? Your visual looks very nice. So I don't know how it's done anymore. Last time we do have this 20 pixel. That is why I wrote it here. Yeah, import that visual. Let me see if it's in this image. No, it was in size last time. A shadow, no. Let me see if I type here size, will I get anything? No, I can't get anything. Image area size, maybe this one. Let me try. 20. Nah, it's not also. That is very weird. Ken, are you still there? but at least we managed to get one thing done. All right. That it has changed again. Yeah, reason why I am not able to check this is because I will explain to you why. Yeah. Today is the 27th of February. Yeah. And every time Microsoft updates something, it will normally be in the mid of the month. And since last week till this week, I was quite busy with other projects. I had no time to check, and that's where it missed my view. I mean, I did check as of I prepared all of this since last month. So last month's release was December. Yeah. So that's why I was able to recall some of this, but this is really new to me. I will need to check the release document again just to get myself familiar before the classes. Image size I use smaller so it fit call out. Oh, that's a very smart move. Last time I recall we can really do that. Never mind. Thanks for sharing your ideas a lot, Chen. Really appreciate that. I was really truly able, guys. I did not make any changes. It was big like this last time, big and ugly, and I managed to put it. There's this thing called image visual placement left of text, and then you can change the ratio. That is why I wrote them here. It seems that things really have changed, and yeah, we all need to keep track of what has changed. Okay, thanks a lot, Chen. So, is there any other questions or any other sharing that you guys would want to have before we end today's session? And of course, before you end, please read James' message here to complete our short evaluation form. We would highly appreciate your support and your feedback so that we all can improve our training deliverable quality as well. Okay, it seems that there is no more questions. Let me just wrap it up. I thank you all so much for your time today, spending this beautiful morning with me, right? And yeah, what you need to do next again, please make sure to hit that evaluation form. And we have this GRC 101 FT. So FT is basically fast track. We have a 101 course. And the 101 course is 3 days. FT is 2 days. What is the difference? Basically, shorter exercises. That's all. Okay. So it depends. If you want to learn more things, then you would go for 101. You can contact James, or you can go for a short one. And with all these webinar, I believe you are already able to explore more things on your own already. So maybe 101 FT would be better for you instead of taking 3 days. I understand right now training requirements have changed and they want shorter and shorter durations. It's not like how we used to attend trainings anymore. Yeah, you can click on that link and sign in and say that you are interested, because all of these tips and tricks, yeah, will be covered in our GRC 101 FT. But of course, if you guys, because I also understand that you all have already more than 3 years experience, you may think FT is too kindergarten for you. You can also go and email us about inquiries, because we also do offer customized courses for your respective companies. You can drop us an email and we will attend to it, and we will be definitely setting up meetings with you, with our salespeople here, so we can customize our training items for your team more precisely to deliver something up to your expectation. With that, I thank you all so much for your time. Have a wonderful, wonderful Friday ahead, and I'll hope to see you guys again. Thank you. Bye bye.